Welcome to the Sleevy G Show. I'm the host for your most. My name is Gomez, and tonight, wow, is a special night. Why, today, February 7th, we have the new hit release book, The Pulse of the Musician, number one smash book right now. As she's holding it right there, the author, Geraldine Anello. How are you?
I'm so excited to be here. I'm so excited to be speaking to you. I'm so excited it's the release. I'm so excited it's number one. I'm just so pumped up.
It is such a great day for you. With the number one smash hit book already. Um, what does it feel right now to have a number one book already that quickly in one
Yeah.
day?
That quickly. It does not feel that quickly. It's one of those like overnight success took like
Yes.
10 years to do. It's like the iceberg. You see the top of the mountain, you don't see the like how much more there is underneath. I've been comparing it to a birth. It's very
Okay.
much, but like a long one, like one that just lasted way too long, like 10 years pregnancy. But it's that kind of thing. So it's like, it comes out with pain, but then you're like elated and so excited that you get to hold it in your arms. It's real. You can feel it. You're like, I did this.
And let
So
me tell you, it's a great book, and
thank
it's
you.
an amazing how many people you've talked to and worked with is an amazing thing. We're gonna get into that, but I want to get a little history with you because it's kind of funny. You are born in France, and then somewhere along the line, you move to the off coast of South Africa.
Yes.
Now, how old were you when you moved from France to the coast of South Africa?
Yeah, I was about, I think three and a half. I was
Okay, so you're
halfway
very
through my
young.
first week of school for my first year of school in France, and we
Okay,
lived there for three. So like three and a half, before four for sure.
wow. And what was the reason for the big move, like to move from one country to another? Well,
Yeah.
was there
My
like,
dad had to do his military service, and
okay,
he was like he wanted to become a doctor. He was following his like doctorate like studies
okay,
to become a doctor. Anyways, a long story short, they could decide. They were young, they were in their 20s. They're like, we want to see the world. With the military service, we can go elsewhere. Let's ask for it, and then that's where we landed. And it was supposed to just be like 1 or 2 years, I think, maybe three,
and
and
it
then
was longer.
8 years. Yeah, because basically my whole childhood was there, and then the teenage years were back in mainland France.
Okay, so now you're as you're getting older, we notice you
What do you
like,
mean?
well, you know what I mean. As you become a young adult, you're still a young adult. You're very young. Well, I mean,
Uh,
as a child,
yeah,
I'll take that
yeah,
back. As a child, you started getting interest, and I noticed you love doing poetry and without a doubt music.
yes.
How did you find your love for that?
Yeah, music was very easy. Like my mom had a piano, she was practicing piano, but like very much as a beginner, took 1 or 2 classes or whatever. So there was a piano at home. And apparently I would just like plunk out the notes.
Okay.
And then one day they had a friend of theirs, had their daughter take piano lesson. The piano teacher was there. They said, can you teach our daughter a tryout lesson? She's probably too young. They rushed home, grabbed me, and I still to this day remember the walk down the hallway to this piano lesson. And I
Nice.
remember opening the door and seeing this woman who probably was like 18 at the time, but to me was like a real adult who
Hmm.
played all these notes really fast. Like she just went from the bottom of the piano all the way to the top, really fast. And I was like, wow. And then
That
she was like,
was
she saw me and she was like, come in. And I was like, I'm going to do that one day. And to this day, when I do it, I'm like, yeah, I'm do it. Like it's probably my biggest achievement as far as like my youngest like self is concerned. Like I'm doing it.
See, that's the greatest thing. And you love poetry too. Now you have written a book on poetry too. I noticed.
Yeah.
I have not. I'm going to be honest with you. I haven't gotten to the poetry book yet.
Okay, it's okay.
I found out about that actually today because I was going through it. I'm like, oh wait, she's on Instagram. So here we are. We're friends on Instagram. So now I'm following you, and I saw the poetry. And I'm like, oh, it was kind of curious. And I'm seeing this. I'm like, wow, she also does poetry. That's amazing.
Thank
She's a
you.
plethora of stuff that you love to do,
Yeah,
and
it's
that's
funny because
amazing.
people think of it as different things, and to me, I'm like, it's an artist thing. It's like
But
your heart wants to say these things, and then you're just letting your heart speak in whatever language it wants to speak at that moment. Sometimes it wants to speak music, and sometimes it wants to speak poetry.
yeah, and it's amazing what you're doing because you were 20 when you came to America for school. And that was to do a year under musical training, if I was correct. Am I correct?
Yeah, you're nailing it. Look at
Well,
you.
I listen, when I have a special guest like this, I got to make sure I know what I'm doing here.
Thank you.
I
Thank
want to
you.
make
No, but
sure
you're
I'm.
dead on.
So now, how was it from leaving your parents in South Africa to come to America? And I don't remember what state you landed in. That's my only thing. Was it okay?
Michigan.
I was gonna say, all right. I was gonna say Detroit, but
Oh
in
yeah, but that's in Michigan.
that's in Michigan. Or the Lions are in the playoffs still, so we gotta. Um, but it's kind of funny. You go from South Africa to Michigan. How was it leaving your parents, first of all? Because it seems like you were tight with your parents, very tightly. And then just packing up and leaving. How was that for the very first time, if you could
Yeah.
explain?
So we left the French island off the coast of South Africa when I was 11. Then
Okay.
I was in mainland France. And by then my parents had separated or were even
Oh.
divorced. So by the time at 20, I moved to France, to the US. It was very much a move from mainland France and moving away from living with my mom. And it was I mean, it wasn't easy by any chance, but I
Mhm.
wanted to be independent. I had been independent for a long time. I love freedom. I loved freedom as a kid. I wanted to do my thing. So that's what made me want to take the jump. Now, that said, once I got on a flight and left,
Mhm.
that was a different story. That whole first like trimester of school, I'm pretty sure I cried every day. And somebody when I left was like, but you know, if you don't like it, remember you can always leave tomorrow. And so the whole time I was there, I was like, I can leave tomorrow. And but the thing of tomorrow is it's never right now. So
Right.
you never leave. So it was kind of a good advice actually. But yeah,
And that's
but I didn't speak English was the thing.
that was the thing. That was the next thing I was going to ask. How
Yeah,
was it trying to learn English? I guess,
yeah.
I mean, I understand my parents came from Peru and Cuba. So what I was the first,
Oh,
I was in the family, I was the first American born.
yeah.
So I had to learn Spanish pretty quickly growing up. Let me put it this way, it wasn't easy and it wasn't fun for me because I didn't want to learn it. I learned it working in a restaurant with my father. Because why in an Italian restaurant, everyone spoke Spanish. So I had to learn quickly. So
Yeah,
I became an expert speaking Spanish quickly. Reading is a whole different story, but I'm able to do it now as I have gotten seasoned and older, as I like to say.
yeah.
But learning English, were you learning through the school? Were you just kind of learning on your own?
Yeah, I took, I think 5 years of English classes in France. I don't know the French school system is overall pretty darn good.
Mhm.
But there's one thing that's not that great is the languages. And I don't,
Okay.
the Germans also learn in school and somehow they're all bilingual. You go to Germany if you're 15 years old, like I did, and they all were completely bilingual in English. And the
Mm,
French, you take any French person, and like we just don't, I don't know what it is. But so that was the biggest shock because I came here thinking I spoke it.
right. And then
Realized halfway through the plane ride when they asked me what meal I wanted, and all I heard was, I was like, oh, whoops. And I landed, and the first person that said hello, I heard the same thing. And I was like, oh, I don't speak it at all. So it was a total shock.
right.
It was a total shock. So that was part of the problem. And then, no, I just took, music classes and then just, I don't know. We had a lot of reading. It was college. You read a lot. So I don't
Right.
know. I had a dictionary and I was just like translating one word after the other. It was pretty painful. Like I
I
said, I
can only
cried
I could
every
no,
day.
but I can only imagine that being, 20 in a whole new environment,
Yeah.
away from your parents, even though they were separated, you know what I mean? But still, you're used to having the comfort of either mom or dad being there for you, and now you're 30,000 miles away from each other, a little bit more,
Yeah.
and that's got to be difficult for you as a 20-year-old coming to the US to learn more music. And that I mean, if that was me, if I got shipped to Spain, I'd be fine. But if I got shipped to France, I'd be scared saying, "The only thing I know how to say is oui and parlez-vous français," kind of. I can't speak French. I mean, I tried taking French in high school, but I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I
I
went back
mean,
to the Spanish.
yeah, I mean, there's different places, right? Like I couldn't land in Japan and speak Japanese.
No, 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 no. Uh,
Yeah, I think the hardest thing for me was not the being away from my family. I think that part I kind of wanted. It was more that I felt I lost my personality for a while, because
Okay.
when you don't speak the language, you're
Hmm.
not able to express your personality. And so the people you interact with don't get to know who you are.
Hmm.
And one of the ways it shows up is with humor. Because you can have humor in your language, but suddenly if you don't speak this language good enough, when you attempt humor, people think you're just making a grammar mistake.
Right. And
So
trust
that
me, I
takes a
know
while.
that.
Like, you have these deep thoughts, but you cannot communicate them. So you're left
Right.
with saying yes, yes, or you just don't understand and people think you're just not that smart. So I think these things, it takes a while and you're like, yeah, people just don't get to know me. Whomever they think Geraldine is just not who I am until I get to like do better at this language. So
Right.
that part, all immigrants go through it. It's super real. So I think that was probably the hardest part for me,
I
along with
mean,
finding a toothbrush and socks because I didn't know what those words were and I couldn't find them. But I
you know,
ended up with
I,
socks from Halloween from Walmart because I couldn't find the socks section.
oh my God. But there's nothing wrong with wearing Halloween socks. I,
Yeah.
my kids still wear them today. So that's a good thing. And they're still wearing their Grinch socks from Christmas.
Yeah.
So I gotta say that your story is so impressive because
Thank
you
you.
don't hear, you hear the successes and reading the book, you see people, I wouldn't say failures, but 101, different ways how they recovered and made themselves better as musicians, as people, you know what I mean? And I'll say this in every book, in every chapter, I noticed you had a line or encouraging words at the end of each chapter, which is very inspiring, and for someone like you to talk to a Ben Spear or Gary Adler or an Alan Ferber,
Herbert.
Ferber, thank you, is an amazing accomplishment. For me, talking to you today is an amazing accomplishment for me because you're also a successful pianist and conductor in Broadway in New York, which is amazing alone. You know what I mean? But to sit down with all these wonderful people that you really sat down and talked to and listened to the struggles, listen to their passions, how they started is amazing, just like you. And
Oh, you're
and
very kind.
well, it's the truth. I mean, the book spoke for itself. You really like brought out the passion of people, how they started. And that's the thing. That's why I started with that with you, because I wanted people to realize how you started. You know what I mean? And that's the important thing too. You came to the United States not speaking English, but you persevered. You went to New York. You started from the bottom and came up on top. You have a number one selling book about musicians, but also it's not about the music, it's about struggles and how people really persevered everything. I was surprised on a lot of these things. When I was reading, I'm like, wow, you just don't realize, people think when they see the musicians, people on Broadway, working with Taylor Swift or Jay-Z or Santana or all these wonderful bands that you hear today, or even just playing in the orchestra in New York City or anywhere in the world. People have struggles and they sometimes don't realize it. They think these guys do it automatically. It's not. It's struggle sometimes, Ben Cesar was a great example. He was with Brad Paisley as the drummer, but he actually wasn't the original. He went trying out a few times and he kept going, and he finally got it. So it's just showing you how people do work hard and get what they're looking for. And it's an amazing thing that what you did.
Thank you. Well, thank you for your kind words. I mean, I definitely don't, you know, I really think of this book as an opportunity I had to talk to people that were inspiring to me.
And let me tell
And
you,
that was a very big part of me. So thank you for putting me in the same category as them. I definitely
I,
think that this was me looking for answers. This was me looking for how do I make it? How do I get the answers from others? And then how do I
right.
help? others also get these answers and this information we don't readily have. That's the full answer. It's not
It,
just this, it's not just that. It's not just a how-to. It's not just
right.
the
But
celebration. It's the whole. It's like all
it's the
this.
whole. But it's funny. It's in a, when people look at the book, they're gonna see this impressive list like I did. And I'm just like, wow. And some of these names I actually am familiar with because I've seen bands, I've heard of people. I mean, I have friends who are who play music and they talk about them. I'm like, oh wow, you know what I mean? And like reading, I was like, oh, I know who that is.
Yeah.
And it's funny. And then I was like, wow, wait a minute. As I'm reading the book, I'm like, wait a minute, I didn't put two to two together. Now, and it's kind of funny because you really brought it out of them. And it's again an impressive list of people,
Yeah.
to sit down and talk to. Now, let me ask you this, because this is something I was kind of curious. Were you able to travel to them, or was it through like a phone? Was it just, I was kind of curious how you were able to accomplish a lot of this.
Yeah, and I'm so lucky that they said yes, right? Because for the ones
Yeah,
who said yes, so many said no, and they were just like trusting me with
sure.
their information, trusting me that I wouldn't use anything that would put them in a bad light or
Hmm.
anything, that I would do this with a lot of love and care for them as well.
Hmm.
And so some of them were on calls, and a lot of them were in New York City, in different
Okay.
areas of the city. But no, yeah, I mean, it didn't involve travel. But yeah, I'm just so grateful to them that they shared and they opened up. It's really hard in music because so much of it relies on your reputation, and your reputation is based on what you say to whom and when you say it.
Hmm.
And so for some of them, these conversations were a while back, and there still resonates very much to the reader now because those themes are universal and
Right.
timeless. But it's like for them, it took a lot of trust. And I'm just so grateful for them that they opened up and they said things that maybe at the time felt a little bit risky. I
Hmm.
really took that very seriously, and I appreciate that and treated that like it was my own reputation that I'm, guarding in a way.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
it's like me having you, it's like the reputation, you know what I mean? Like it's an amazing feat, you know what I mean? Again, as I look, I had like a local celebrities in New Jersey come on the show, but you're the first New York City, but musician,
Mm-hmm.
conductor, pianist on Broadway, four-time, no, four-time author, with this being the fourth book, three with
Yeah.
poetry, but and and if I remember, motivational speaker too. So
I
I
do.
forgot if I did forget to say that.
Yeah, I like to speak about music, and usually for musicians, I like to help people and inspire them and help them just get how do you get there? A lot of
Right.
people are excellent at their skills and don't need a lot to like cross them to their goals. And
Hmm.
like me in this book, it's like that's why I can help them, is because
Yes.
these people share this information with me. And so I'm just passing it on, really. It's like, here
But
it is.
still but the passion from you to them to the book is amazing because you can read your writing, you can see the passion that you have and the passion that every single gentleman, lady in this book has done. You know, some have done Disney movies that we've heard the music from. I'm not going to mention because you guys have to read the book because it's an again amazing thing. You know what I mean? Work with Disney, work with Pixar. You worked with Alicia Keys, Radio City, the Christmas Spectacular. One of the conductors was there. I think that was
Gary Adler.
Thank you, Gary Adler. I'm trying to remember everybody's name,
Oh my goodness, that's a lot.
but yeah, exactly. And don't get me wrong, I have a cheat sheet here, and that's why my cheat sheet's not in the greatest notes. I have scratch writing, so
I
that's
love
why.
it.
And just seeing these people grow from how they started, how their parents never really pushed, or they pushed too much that they quit and they did odd
Yeah,
jobs, ITs, restaurants, sales. It's and then they go back to their passion
yeah,
15 years, 5 years later. You know,
yeah.
like I found my passion of podcasting a couple of years ago. And me and my best friend Brian made our show, Playlist Wars. And it's all about the music, and I was more about movies and video games and my improv, you know what I mean? That's who I am. he's the knowledgeable one of music. He could tell you the date, the time, and everything about like a concert. Where I'm like, yeah, but I can tell you the movie where it was in. But it works so well. But for me, what I do now is listen, talk face to face, have fun, enjoy each other's company like we're doing like right now. This is the great thing for me because again, this is I could say a big break for me because I'm talking to not just a motivational speaker, but an author, a conductor, a pianist, but also has done great work with Broadway.
Thank
You know,
you.
so for me, this is like an amazing, amazing, amazing thing for me. And, you know, and that's what I love because your story is so amazing. Just like everybody of these, all these ladies and gentlemen in your book.
Yeah, their stories really, I mean, I'm still inspired. I've had to like when you do a book, you have to edit it so many times, you have to look at the pages just for simple things like
Oh
the
yeah.
layout and all these things. And I will read what they say, and I'm like, it speaks to me so much all the time. I'm like, oh yeah, I need to remember this advice. Because that's the thing, right? It's like, or even a story, it just hits different depending on the
Mhm.
day you read it, depending on all these things. And I've had friends who have read it who are non-musicians, and they're like, this is really about just passion and about your commitment to what you're doing. It's
There's
beyond music. It's great for beginner musicians, professional musicians, artists in general, and also anyone who it's all about how do you achieve your dreams? How do you
Mhm.
get to your goals? How do you commit to yourself and what you're trying to do in your world, you know?
Yeah.
So
I mean,
I
and that's the greatest thing. Like I am not a musician. I've tried. I mean, I grew up playing saxophone and the clarinet. And I always loved the horns for some reason. As I got older, I tried doing guitar. Drums, I'm very not organized. So, and I could not sing a tune. So I did plays in high school. I could not, I had to drown out my voice with the other guys who were singing in the background.
I don't know.
Yeah, pretty much. But th- I love the hear the passion of the music too on some of these artists.
Oh my gosh, it's incredible.
But you know what's funny? It's just not the artist's voice, but it's the band.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When you hear that certain drum beat or you hear that piano key like Alicia Keys can do, things like that. Or even yourself, you know what I mean? I actually was able to hear some stuff that I found on YouTube, which is amazing.
Thank you.
You're a very talented young lady.
Thank you.
And I know you probably hear it from everybody, and I know you probably hear it from, people who know who you are, and eh, for me, it's a true honor
It's
because
funny. It's like you read when you're a musician, you're just always think of what you can do better.
Mhm,
And then I did this book and interviewed these people thinking like when I'm like them, when I have the positions like them, I
mhm,
will feel like I'm good enough. And then I interviewed them and it's like, oh, it's the plight of the musician or the artist in general that you're always having a certain level of self-doubt and you're always having to kind of be courageous and
yeah,
continue putting yourself out there. And even on a show you may have played 100 times, suddenly you're like, "Ah, I'm not sure about this thing." And like there's just always an element of, you know, will it be here today? Will it be okay today? It never feels like, ha, that's it. Today I made it. Woo!
yeah,
So it's always filled with a certain level of it's very much like a relationship.
yes, yes. Trust me, I know. I trust me, I know very well. The good thing is I have a good relationship, so that's the good thing. You have to. I keep working on it every day. So, but
That's
that's
the thing, right? You keep working on it every day. Oh my gosh.
it's what it is
Yeah.
because it doesn't matter. Actually, I'll say it. My daughter is a dancer. She just got onto the team this past year, and she's got her first two competitions coming up and her recital. And I'm not a perfectionist, but I know practice is very hard. I grew up as well, I wouldn't say one of the best athletes. I was good, but I wasn't the best. But I know practice could be hard. People keep be yelling at you because you're doing something wrong, wrong steps, wrong things. And I just keep reassuring to my daughter, you have to practice.
Yeah.
You have to practice. If it's not every day, every other day. Because I remember she could not do, I guess, her leg coming up to her head in September. Here I am, February. She could do it like if it's her job. And that's the thing, you know what I mean? It's an amazing thing to see now of almost like passing the torch to seeing her succeed a little bit, you know what I mean? And that's like your book, you know what I mean? Just like your book, you're seeing it succeed. It's like your book is like your child, you're seeing it grow dramatically. And I'm thankful for a lot of that stuff. And I'm thankful, like I said, for you and all my guests that come on the show because it's an honor to
Mhm.
have someone, you know, like a small guy like me in the biggest podcasting world of New York City and New Jersey. You know, when you're competing with so many people. I
Mhm.
mean, I actually had someone that put down the show. Can't believe you made it a year. You know, and it threw another log in my fire.
Yeah.
It's fuel. And I said, one day I'm going to get bigger, I'm going to get better, and I'm going to be even, you know, I'm going to have better guests, you know, and, you know, here we are today. Here you are. You know what I mean? Like another awesome, great, one of my greatest guests, too. You know what I
Oh,
mean? All my guests are great, but here we are. We're talking to a true person who's worked on Broadway, who's done the music, who studied the language to get to where you are. And that's amazing accomplishments that if people have not said it to you, I'm saying it to you today. You know what I mean?
thank you. Thank you for sharing the story about your daughter. That was a beautiful story. It made me think, for me, the biggest arc of the book is in this quote that I put at the beginning and the end of
Mhm.
the book, actually twice because I love it so much. And it's, you don't reach success, you get lifted up
Mhm.
to success. And
Yes.
it's a quote by someone unknown. We don't know who said it, but I love it. And it's exactly what you're saying. Your daughter, if she, when she succeeds at whatever she succeeds at, will not just have done it by herself. You will have been part of lifting her.
Mhm.
Her coaches will have been a part of lifting her. We're all being lifted at all times, and we're all lifting others at all time. And that was really the goal for me with this book. It's like I needed the lift when I started, and
Mhm.
also I want to lift others. When I came at 20 to Kalamazoo College,
Mhm.
I was told everything was going to be covered financially, and I was French, so that meant to me everything. Well, turned out I had to pay money to take the piano lessons, and it was more for one trimester, it was a trimester system,
Mhm.
than the whole year of the whole schooling in France. And
Right.
so at the time, I was like, I don't even, that wasn't the deal. I don't, what am I going to do? And it was like, well, I have to take piano lessons. I cannot spend a year here without piano lessons. So I went to the piano teacher, and it was a small liberal arts college, very
Mhm.
small. And I said, I don't know what to do. And I was, 20 years old, freaking out, not speaking the language. And he said,
Right.
well, come and play for me. So I went and played something. And he said, at the end, after I played, he said, you know what? I will teach you for free. I believe in you. You have to promise me two things. One, you're gonna have to practice every day, which I was used to doing anyways.
Right.
Like, and two, you're gonna have to pay it back later to by doing the same for others, not as in like teaching piano, but in your own way. You're gonna have to
Right.
give back what you know to others. And on top of that, the tradition in lessons is you get one hour lesson a week. He was like, there's a sign up sheet on my door. You can sign up for as many lessons as you want the whole year.
That's awesome.
That was the deal. And so it's like, again, that man, Dr. Tong, very much lifted me. And you're
Mhm.
just lifted at different times.
Yeah.
And that's so important. And so this book really for me is also a way of having these people who are incredible, who have lifted me, lift the readers the
And
same way you're doing with your daughter.
and that was the same way that my coach lifted me to become a better player. You know, he goes, I'm making it to where I'll never forget it. It was my sophomore year. He was showing me something. He goes, I want you in this position, but you got to trust me. It's hard work, dedication, and sweat. I said, let's do it.
Yeah.
And every day in the summer, 110-degree weather, don't matter, in the gym, doors closed, running in the gym. And then slowly or surely, you start seeing the team start coming together as I'm running. Everyone started joining in, and you just noticed there was that it wasn't just me that got lifted, the whole team was lifted
Wow.
by by my coach, and everyone saw what I was doing, and everyone jumped in to either cheer me on, support me, or actually bond as a team together. And that's what it is too. It's, it's just not one person, it's a multitude of people. I mean, you've worked on Broadway, you know how it is.
Yeah.
It's, if one messes up, everyone can mess up.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're working as a unity, as a family, and togetherness, it doesn't matter if the mistake happened. No one's perfect. I know that.
Yeah.
Mistakes happen, even in shows, even in someone hit the wrong string in an orchestra, or someone hit the horn too quick. It does happen. But the amazing thing is you get over it and you just keep pushing. And that's something, your book details too. People kept pushing. And that's something that it's from courage, or
Mm-hmm.
or someone lifting him up or her up or them up to get to where they are now today.
Mm-hmm.
My thing for me, everyone's like, oh, you don't have sponsors. I don't want sponsors. I do this because this is what I love. This is my joy, my hobby, my fun, talking about this, just like you are with your book and your talents, and your story is amazing. And people are gonna know that today. You know what I mean? They're gonna see this today and say, wow, what an inspiration. Especially, you do motivational speaking for musicians, people who are looking to get into music. And that's, again, another powerful tool that you're working with.
Mm-hmm. There's so many different paths. And then as a musician, it's easy to think you need to pick this or you need to pick one. And then in the book, you see so many people they didn't pick. They went and they did several,
Several
and that's
different
how it
things.
worked. Or they studied this and then they did that. And like there's flexibility. And when you're a musician, you forget because you're in a world that says you go to school for this and you do this after. It's a very one-track mind. But as a musician, your path is not going to be like other people's path. And so a lot of the advice out there does not match your life and what your life is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same with the how to kind of advice and books. I was like, yeah, I can say, how do you get there? I can ask people how to get there, but it doesn't tell you anything else about the rest. And the rest is equally as important.
Right.
You need to know that even these people who may have had 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years career still sometimes doubt, still sometimes have let down. And also they're incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Those things go hand in hand.
Yeah, they do. And
Yeah.
some people don't realize that either, though. That's the thing. They think, oh, all right, I made it. What to do next?
Mm-hmm.
Don't stop, because you could always get better at something else. I'm always fascinated with drums. I always loved the drums. I could never play it, but I've seen guys with the simple three-piece drums with the cymbals and everything. Okay, and I've seen guys with like 18 drums around them, and they are playing every part of that set. And that's amazing. That means people challenge themselves. I'm like, one of the, Dave Grohl, drummer from Foo Fighters and lead singer, guitarist, amazing musician. Tommy Lee from Motley Crue, probably one of the greatest and sickest drummers I've ever seen. You know what I mean? You got Santana with the guitar. You have Enrique Iglesias, senior and junior, with the amazing Hispanic voice. You have Brad Paisley, who's got an amazing country voice. Faith Hill, Alicia Keys, Jay-Z. All these people have amazing voices. But don't forget, they didn't come from some of these guys did not come from music. They came from different paths in their world,
Mm-hmm.
and music found them. Some of them music found them, or they found music, and then boom, they made a career.
Mm-hmm.
And some people think it's all about the lifestyle. It's not. I don't think it ever is. You know what I mean? Maybe you can shed a little light, but I think it's more about who you are. How do people see you?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Hey, I could see Jay-Z with his New York Yankee had a New York Knicks game or a New York Giants game or a Yankee game and say he's got the life. But if anybody's ever heard his music, he tells a story about his life
Mm-hmm.
a little bit. He was a hustler, you know, but he made it and he's now successful. And that's something people don't realize. Everybody thinks, oh, the money, the cars, the stuff. No, what about people's pressure? I, maybe you can answer this because you've worked in Broadway.
Mhm.
You worked as a pianist and as a conductor. Again, I don't know what the pressure's like to be in New York City as a Broadway musician at all, but what is it for you as a conductor on a say a hit Broadway show? I mean, you were in several, I could tell that, but like say the number one hit show everyone goes sees every year, like Old School Cats, there we go. Being a conductor for a show like that, picture that. I wish I got to see it once, and that was an amazing show. I don't really get the chance to go to Broadway anymore like I used to. But if I'm able to, I would love to see a show just because it's an amazing thing. The last show actually I got to see was Wicked.
Oh, so good.
It's an amazing show. But being a conductor for a musical like that, how does the pressure, like, how is it? I guess is the question. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I want people to realize like what it is to be a conductor in a Broadway show, like say like Wicked. I
Yeah.
mean, I mean,
Yeah, you get different things. It's like, well, first of all, you're the one making sure the music is coming in. If
right?
you're not waving your arm saying come in, they're not. They may know they should. They may look at you like, hello, where are you? But
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can't tell them to go. Because probably they're not going to come in. They're going to assume there's an issue if you're not doing it, or they
Mhm,
may try to wave at you, but you got to make sure they come in, which every conductor on Broadway does all the time. But as simple as it seems, you have a 15-minute dialogue, they're talking on stage. Don't miss the word that the
mhm.
music comes in on. It's not about around this time. It's this word, usually this syllable of this word is
Is
when you wave your hand.
right.
Don't miss it. So that's one element of when the music comes in. And nobody wants to, see a scene of like, I love you too. And then you sit and wait.
Yeah, yeah. No, no, no. You need to be on
You
point.
know, that would ruin the whole thing. So that's one element. But the other thing, a lot of times on Broadway, is the conductor also is a big part of the lights and the
Mhm,
scenery because it's all integrated. You have a camera on you a lot of times. And the video is not only playing for the actors on the balcony, but is
mhm.
also backstage in different points. So
Oh
other people
wow.
are taking their own directions to their own teams off of you. So it's like
Wow.
you do this and they're like, and lights. And sometimes you have even buttons and automation nowadays that literally trigger if you put it at this time, this point in time. And that's true not only conductor, but also as a keyboardist.
Hmm.
When you push this button, it triggers all these light sequence, not
Hmm.
this one time light, this light sequence, maybe for 3 minute sequence, and these scenery sequence at the same time. If you put it at the wrong time, you could have actors that get hurt
Yeah, right, right. And
because the scenery, or maybe now the music and the scenery and the lights don't match.
right.
It's that kind of precision. And it's that kind of precision of like that syllable, this thing, and this right now. Here you have to do this for this. Here you have to click the button. And it's the multiplication of all these specificities that all are super important for the show.
And
And
that's
possibly for the
wow.
safety sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes also for the safety.
Right.
So so that's when all is well. And then you add on top of that the fact that actors rotate a lot of the time. So now you have an actor, maybe it's their first time, or maybe this actor does it different than these other
Mhm.
actors. You have to listen, pay attention. Maybe you have different musicians today than the norm. So on top of that, you've got all these changing criteria that are happening. So it's just a lot the good thing is you're in flow. You're
Right.
not bored. You're
No,
not
I can see
bored.
that. I mean, you're I'm like, whoa. I definitely know I cannot be a conductor because I'll mess up somewhere because it's something you have to practice. So it feels like every single day. Now, I mean, again, as a conductor, in a musical or in a show, it doesn't matter. Like, does practices happen like every day, or is it like every other day? Like,
Yeah, so for musical theater, and that's true of all musical theater across the country, pretty much that's professional musical theater.
mhm,
You have a set period of about, depending on where it's at, four weeks to 6 weeks rehearsal, where you have all the actors, the pianist.
mhm,
Later on, you bring in the orchestra, and then you have a 1 week in the theater of rehearsal with the scenery and the lights and everything. Once the show is running, most of the time, regional theater and stuff, it's going to be a month long, 2 months long, so it's pretty static. On Broadway, you have all these varying elements.
mhm,
And so then on Broadway, a lot of times there'll be rehearsals for the understudy actors, and that's going to be usually Thursday afternoon. some Friday afternoon. So when you don't have two show days, because
Okay.
Saturday you have two shows, Sunday maybe you have two shows, Wednesday maybe you have two shows, depending, each show has its own schedule, but you'll usually be in rehearsal Thursday and Friday. Now, who is doing it in the music team changes. It could be a rehearsal pianist, like I've done many, many times.
Hmm.
It could, it's not always the conductor. Maybe the conductor is in casting because you're already casting for the next actors that are going to go in. So there's just a lot going on. Maybe also the conductor is getting the tour ready to go on the road. So
Right.
they're not around for Broadway for a period of time because now they're getting the tour ready. So their associate becomes the conductor, and then the sub for the associate becomes the associate now. And now, so musical chair is literally musical chair.
Literally musical
Chair moves
chair.
up, the other person moves up, the other person moves up, and the other yeah,
Wow.
musical chair. And literally, when you're on Broadway, when it's your own position, it's called your chair.
Wow.
I have
That's amazing. That's like, wow. You just don't realize. Yeah, I know it comes up. Don't worry about it. It's great when thumbs up comes up like that. It's an amazing thing though, because you don't realize like that. To be honest, that's the first time I've ever heard. I've had a friend, she was a dancer on Broadway for many years. She literally recently retired for her kids. And she was in high school. She was doing shows like Rock of Ages. She was in, I believe she was in Footloose, and she was always in the city a lot. So, for me, I always knew her, and she was on my show because of her son. And she was just telling me like how some of her practice could end up, with her agent and everything. You know what I mean? Like you got to make tough decisions. I get it. And you know what? And she said, I love, don't get me wrong. She goes, I love the spotlight and I love doing the shows. I love dancing, but it was just time. You just know when it's time.
Yeah, and it's also different for actors and dancers in particular from musicians, because there's the added, the body has a little bit of a shelf life.
Yes,
I
yes,
don't know.
yes.
I mean, to say I don't know how to say it best, but a lot of dancers at some point do feel like it's the toll it's taking is no longer a good, in good
Mhm.
balance with how much they love it,
But I noticed on Broadway, it's like, and also like you said something that stuck out with me a little bit, is when you're practicing with other actors, either be the understudy or say like a big name actor comes into the show. Now you got to figure out them a little bit now because it's hard. You know what I mean? You had a named actor, name actor who was the lead for quite some time. And you're used to him. Then all of a sudden, say Leonardo DiCaprio came in, and now you have to figure him out now a little bit because it's not going to happen in the first day.
Mhm.
It's going to happen in the repeats, just getting used to a person.
The good thing is it's a team effort, and on
Mm.
Broadway, you do have things need to be done a certain way. Again, a lot of it because of safety. When it comes
Yeah.
to actors, they have to stand here and not there because maybe this automation's coming in and could,
Hmm. Could
hurt
hurt
them. So,
somebody.
so that's why they're having rehearsal. There's a whole team. There's a choreographer that's going to tell them how to dance. There's going to be the director, assistant director, or stage manager that's going to tell them where to go, how to be. It's going to be a conversation. There's going to be the music team representative, whoever it is that particular day. So it's very much a team process on all aspects. I mean, if you have a musician subbing in an orchestra on Broadway, which happens all the time,
Right.
also part of a team effort because the person who holds the chair will be giving them all the information and the notes that they wrote down, and then that person will go practice, then come back, then maybe watch another sub do it. That person will give more insights. Then they'll
Yes.
play their first show, and the associate who's conducted that day will give them some notes. Then the next time is the conductor. So it just really is a real sense of strong community, and that's kind of true of the whole music world. I mean, it's
Right.
you know people and everybody's watching out for each other and helping each other. There's a lot of camaraderie.
Yes, and that's something that's always important because you never know. There's going to be a time where you're going to need somebody to help you,
Mhm.
and if it sub for you or conduct for you, or even say they're doing their life book too, and they're like, hey, I was on your book, and let's talk about that in my book for a few minutes. You know what I mean? It could be anything. It could be even appearing in one of their songs too, you know what I mean, as a piano. So you never know.
Mhm.
And and those are some, like I said, amazing, amazing accomplishments. I mean, I gotta say the book was amazing.
I
And
loved it.
I loved it, especially me not being a musician. Being a non-musician reader was an amazing read. Um, excuse me, I apologize on that. And I'll tell you, it was great because it was a true insider guide to the music industry, and it's an amazing thing. And what you have accomplished so far has been so amazing too. Um, we're at that point tonight that we're coming towards the end of the show, and we really touched on a lot of things on this book and you personally. And I'm so thankful and amazed on what you have accomplished so far, up to now, and it's an amazing thing.
Thank you.
And if you ever want to come back on and talk more, you're always welcome, especially for poetry next time. You're more than welcome to, because like I said, it's an amazing thing when you could do a book like that too. And I will actually start reading some of the poetry because now it caught my interests, just to get some ideas, and
Thank you so much. It's been such a great conversation, and I love hearing like this perspective and all
Mhm.
the stories you had to share. So thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, no problem. I thank you for coming on tonight and sharing your stories too. And guys, everybody, guys, girls, everybody, even if you're not a musician, you have to pick up this book. The Pulse of the Musician is an incredible #1 seller. Guys, pick it up on Amazon or pretty much anywhere you can find books, Barnes and Noble, local shops. Check it out, guys. It's a great read. I enjoyed every minute of it. Like I said, I was just totally blown away with everything. Before we sign off, is there where can people actually find you? Where can they connect or talk or send messages to you?
Yeah, I'm on all the social media under the name of the book, The Pulse of the Musician, also under my own name, Geraldine Anello. I have geraldineanello.com, thepulseofthemusician.com. So I'm easily foundable, findable. You can Google me, and sometimes I take a week to respond, but eventually I do respond.
Well, again, thank you so much, Geraldine. It was an honor to having you here tonight or today, everything, you know what I mean? It's just an amazing thing. And guys, please don't forget to pick up the book. And as I end my show every night, it's nothing but love, peace, and happiness. Thank you, and please keep checking us out. Have a great day, guys.